So the question of the death penalty, capital punishment, has really been brought into the cultural conversation. Again, people are thinking about this, they're trying to assess whether this is an ethical, moral thing, and we as Christians, we've got to be doing the same thing, working out, is this a biblical practice? Should we oppose it? Should we support it? Let's find out. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to All Things Theology. My name is Andrew. On this channel, I make videos to help you guys learn and live out your theology. If that sounds like something that you're into, do consider subscribing. Okay, so capital punishment, I've got a couple of considerations, things that we should just think about whenever we are trying to work out, should we be opposing this? Should we be supporting this? The first consideration is, what does it mean to be pro-life in the context of the death penalty? And if we as Christians are claiming to be pro-life, then yes, that absolutely means pro-life for the unborn, but it also has to mean pro-life for the refugee and for the homeless and for widows and orphans, for those in poverty, for those who have been victims of crime, but also, and here's where it gets a little bit uncomfortable, for those who have been perpetrators of crime. And whenever we hear that, the immediate reaction is to think that no, those people don't deserve love, they don't deserve mercy and compassion. That is the natural human sentiment, I guess, but what Jesus calls us to is not the natural human sentiment. It is a divine sort of love, the love that he has shown us. And so if he's shown us that love, we can't withhold that love from people who have committed awful crimes. I think that most people would agree that capital punishment, if it is to be enacted at all, should only be carried out for those people who have committed really awful crimes, generally things like murder or multiple murders. The question then is, does capital punishment uphold the sanctity of the life of murder victims? And on top of that, as if that wasn't a difficult enough question, we've got to ask, does capital punishment uphold the sanctity of the life of the perpetrators of the crime? Both of those lives, the victim and the perpetrator, those both need to be considered, because if we are pro-life, then we should be pro-life for the victim, but also pro-life for the perpetrator. Again, that's uncomfortable, but the love that Jesus calls us to and the grace that he calls us to isn't necessarily comfortable. Real quick, if you're enjoying this video, please do hit it with a like. Now, the next consideration when it comes to capital punishment, I think, is a lot easier. That is the question, does the state, biblically speaking, does the state have the authority to wield the sword, to enact capital punishment? And I think, biblically speaking, people have different opinions on this, but I do think it's quite clear that the state does have authority to carry out capital punishment. In the Old Testament, in the Mosaic Law, there are instances where capital punishment is to be carried out, but then in the New Testament, Romans chapter 13, Paul is talking about obeying the state, and he says that the state does not bear the sword in vain. That essentially means they have the authority to enact capital punishment. So the government might have the authority to carry out capital punishment, but the next and the crucial question here, I think, is, does the state have the credibility or the reliability to do that? They may have the authority to use the sword, but they might not have the credibility. In North Korea, Pakistan, Yemen, Christians face the death penalty for their faith. Is that a fair use of the death penalty? No. And so even though those states do have the authority to carry out the death penalty, they don't have the credibility to do that, and so they should just stop doing it. Now, whenever we think of the Western world, and particularly the USA, that's the reason why this is a cultural conversation at the minute. There are quite a number of capital punishments being carried out at the minute. We need to ask the same questions. Does the US government have the authority to carry out executions? Well, biblically speaking, yes, they do, but does the US government have the credibility and the reliability to carry out these executions? I suspect that the hundreds of people who have been wrongfully executed or wrongfully sentenced to death before being proven innocent, I suspect that they would say no, the US government is not reliable in carrying out the death penalty, and so their power or their privileges to do that should be revoked. So with those considerations in mind, you're probably wondering, do I support the death penalty? And the answer is, I don't really know, because part of me, a large part of me, says no, I don't support the death penalty. I think that there are too many instances where it has been wrongly carried out, only to find out later on actually that person didn't do it. There are so many complications and issues with it when it comes to race and access to legal support, so I think no. But then at the same time, whenever you're asking about the Nuremberg trials or Osama bin Laden, then I would have to probably say yes. I don't have much of a moral issue with those people being executed, so then I don't know where that leaves me. As I say, this is difficult stuff. It's difficult stuff to think through and to try and work out biblically, but those three considerations, the thing about what does it mean to be pro-life in the context of the death penalty, whether the state has biblically the authority to carry out the death penalty, and then whether they have the credibility to enact the death penalty. I think those are a really great starting point for trying to work out where should we stand on this. This is not a comprehensive video on the death penalty by any means. There's a lot more that could be said. I might make another video on it if you want. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit this video with a like, and I will see you in the next video. God bless.